Ladies and gentlemen, please help us welcome to the stage former Miami Dolphins wide receiver, sportscaster, and a voice of the Miami Dolphins. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Cefalo.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hard Rock Stadium. Did we get a beautiful day or what? Thank you for joining us today as we celebrate and honor a man who's had a profound impact on this organization, the National Football League, every one of his players, and the entire South Florida area. His 347 wins in his career stood as a benchmark and still do for greatness, for just an outstanding ability of coaching. It's representative of the high expectations he had for himself, his players, and everyone with whom he'd come in contact. He was a man of undeniable stature and presence. Who could ever forget his jaw? A man whose intensity and competitiveness on the field was matched only by his kindness and generosity away from it. He was a man whose honesty and integrity was at the forefront, and a man who fought vigorously to ensure that everything he did was, quote, on the level. Don Shula was a family man, too, one whose family became part of football here in South Florida and around the country, for that matter, from the constant presence of his family at practice and games throughout his career to his sons following in his footsteps into the coaching ranks. Football truly is a Shula family affair. We are honored today to be joined by many of those who had the joy of being part of Don's story, and by many others who simply are here to share how much his life was impacted, if even for just a brief second. Don's legacy has and will continue, and his impact on the game of football and the NFL will be everlasting. Joining us today, we have so many who wanted to say thank you. And helping us kick off this celebration is the Commissioner of the National Football League. Please welcome Mr. Roger Goodell.
Thank you, Jimmy. It's a pleasure to join you today and help celebrate the incredible life and career of Coach Shula. I know seeing all these fans and players celebrating here today would make Coach feel great. As many of you may know, this is the 102nd season of the National Football League. After the last couple of years, it feels like maybe that happened in the last 2 years, because it's been such a long couple of years for all of us. But we're off to a great start this season, but it wasn't always that way. For the first 40 years of our history, the NFL struggled. We trailed boxing, baseball, and college football in popularity. The league really didn't find success until the mid-'60s, around the time that Don Shula, just a few years after being named the youngest head coach in NFL history, started his streak of 7 straight winning seasons with the Baltimore Colts. During his 26 years here in Miami, he put Miami, and in large part the NFL, on the sports map by establishing one of the great franchises in the NFL. One that included the perfect 1972 season, two Super Bowl victories, and more wins, 347, than any coach in NFL history. But his contributions to the game span far beyond his all-time record. He changed the game and made it better in every way by co-chairing the competition committee for 21 years. In the process, he gave Pete Rozelle and every commissioner that follows a great gift. He brought credibility to the committee as a prominent head coach and forced the league to evaluate all our rules, improve player safety, improve officiating every single year. We are still the only league to annually make rule changes and adopt them to make the game better. His membership on the committee often led some to believe that the Dolphins received preferential treatment by game officials. But if you heard the colorful way he spoke to the game officials on this field, you wouldn't believe that. Oftentimes, he extended that to some of us in the league office, and I was on the other end of that many, many times. To me, the essence of Don Shula was captured in his response to a reporter's question, who asked why he went out of his way to correct so many small mistakes during practice. His reply, "What's a small mistake?" That was coach. Meticulous preparation to improve the team, improve the game, and above all, make football better. At his core, Coach Shula was a teacher. He exemplified character, integrity, leadership, and the importance of dedication and commitment to his community. And that is reflected today in the Don Shula High School Coach of the Year Award that we announce each year at the Super Bowl. He loved his players and assembled some of the most respected players in our history, on and off the field. His reputation of being disciplined and demanding led to mutual respect and many tremendous friendships, which were celebrated during the many get-togethers of his great teams. Only one thing mattered more than his players and coaches, and that was his family. His 5 children, David, Donna, Sharon, Ann, and Mike, 16 grandchildren, 5 great-grandchildren, and I just heard one more on the way. As an example, maybe the most difficult game of his entire career was not a loss, but a win in 1994 against David's Cincinnati Bengals. It is the first time in NFL history that father and son head coaches had faced each other. Coach knew that if he won, it would mean that Dave would be on the losing end. I think Coach took that win the hardest. This weekend, the NFL begins our focus on the early detection of cancer through our Crucial Catch program. It wouldn't surprise many of you that Coach Shula was ahead of us once again by establishing the Don Shula Foundation for Breast Cancer Awareness shortly after his wife, Dorothy Shula's passing in 1991. Fortunately, Don met someone very special to help him carry on. Marianne, you have been a rock for Coach and all of us. Thank you for being an amazing partner to Coach and a friend to all of us. Love you. I'd also like to thank Steve Ross, Tom Garfinkel, and the entire Miami Dolphins organization for preserving and paying tribute to this iconic NFL immortal. It was a great privilege to know Coach Shula, a true Hall of Famer in every way. And on behalf of the entire NFL, I want to thank the Shula family for sharing Coach with all of us. Thank you, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Roger. You know, one of the great things about Coach Shula as a player, a young 21, 22, 23-year-old, he taught us never to be feared, never fear anyone, never fear a single person. After Super Bowl 17, we were playing the Washington Redskins. We were beaten at the Rose Bowl. NBC had the game, and Ahmad Rashad was interviewing Coach Shula. And Ahmad looked at the camera and said, "Coach Shula, President Reagan is on the line, and he would like to congratulate you on a wonderful season." And you could hear that familiar voice of the president say, "Coach Shula, I know how you feel." And Shula paused, looked at the camera, and said, "Mr. President, no, you don't." And there's never been a president to call another losing locker room since. You know, Don was born as the son of a fisherman in a very small town in northeastern Ohio called Grand River. It was there that he would begin to follow his passion to unparalleled success.
Donald Francis Shula was born to Don and Mary Shula on January 4th, 1930, in Grand River, Ohio, a small town along the Lake Erie shore. In 1945, a young Don Shula attended Thomas W. Harvey High School in Painesville, Ohio, where his football career may have ended before it began.
I got home and she said, "What's that?" I said, "Well, I was making a tackle and I cut my nose." She said, "That's it. No more football for you."
Despite his mother's wishes, Shula was determined to play.
So the next year, she wouldn't sign the card for me to go out and play. So I secretly forged my parents' name on a card, handed it in, and that's how I got to play my sophomore year.
In 1947, Shula received a scholarship to play for John Carroll University, a Jesuit school just outside of Cleveland. A year later, Shula considered joining the Catholic priesthood after a 3-day retreat, but decided against it because of his commitment to football.
I got thinking about not being able to play football, baseball, basketball, or run track. So that took away my desires to become a priest.
In 1950, John Carroll faced powerhouse Syracuse.
Paul Brown and his whole staff were there scouting Syracuse for pro prospects. So when I had the big day, it got drafted by the Browns.
You know, one of the great things about coming back to South Florida and working in this community and media was that I got a chance to spend more time with Coach Shula. If you all remember, Monday nights in this community, it meant two things. Monday Night Football, but before that, it was the Don Shula Show. And we all sat there and we watched the Shula Show, and then we watched Monday Night Football. Chuck Dowdle hosted it first, and I was lucky enough to do it later. I learned a lot about him then. When he went into the Hall of Fame, I went to his little hometown and interviewed his siblings, those that were left. He was one of many. He had triplets in his family, and he had twins in his family. Imagine that. That's where he got the values that he gained from his parents and his siblings, including his faith, his incredible faith. His scholarship offer for 1 year at John Carroll, and John Carroll, by the way, is a Jesuit institution. Please welcome a man who knew him well, His Excellency, the Most Reverend Archbishop Thomas Wensky, the Archbishop of Miami. Archbishop.
A few years ago, I had the occasion to ask Coach Shula about a time shortly after he had arrived in Miami, and there were rumors flying that he was about to pack up and leave Miami. And so Shula gave me the full story and confirmed the details of this to me, which I won't go into because it would be rated R for language. But it happened sometime before the perfect season. He and Joe Robbie, the owner of the Dolphins at that time, had a fight. Now, they were both headstrong, and they were so mad at each other, they stopped speaking to each other. And that's why the rumors were flying that Shula was going to pack up and leave Miami. Now, as I said, they were both headstrong, but they were both good Catholics. Coach Shula went to daily mass at the Marian Center when the team was training at the then Biscayne College, now St. Thomas University. They were Catholics, but they were humans, sinners like all of us. And they stopped talking to each other, whatever the reasons for the fight. Now, the then Archbishop of Miami, Coleman Carroll, heard about the fight. He heard that they weren't speaking to each other. He heard about the rumors of Shula possibly leaving Miami. And so he called each of them by phone, unbeknownst to the other, and said, "I need to see you in my office." He gave each one an appointment. Now, you don't easily say no to an archbishop, even if you're Coach Shula, or especially if you're Coach Shula. So, on this day determined, Joe Robbie shows up. A priest is waiting for him, takes him to a room. Shula then shows up a little bit later. Another priest is waiting for him, takes him to his room, to a different room. In the meantime, Archbishop Carroll had called a press conference. And when the press had assembled in the Archbishop's conference room, he went there and he said to the press, "Are you all here?" And they said yes, and he said, "Well, bring them in." And so from one door comes Joe Robbie, and from the other, Shula. The Archbishop barks at them. "Hey, you two, shake hands." "Shake hands," I said. They shook hands. The fight was over. The two men reconciled. The Archbishop closed the press conference, and eventually Miami went on to the perfect season. Shula was a man of principle, a man of virtue, a man of faith. He was a great coach, a good husband, and a loving father. He was all of this because he had the humility to live according to the precepts of his Catholic faith, and when it counted, to shake Joe Robbie's hand. Eternal rest grant unto him, O Lord. May his soul and the souls of all the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. Amen.
Archbishop, there was a second time when there were rumors that Don Shula was going to leave the Miami Dolphins. Some of you players will remember this. He came in one day and he was chuckling into the meeting room with the players. And a league called the USFL was just beginning. And a man named Donald Trump had just purchased the New Jersey Generals. And there was a story written by one of the New York papers, one of the tabloids, that claimed that Donald Trump was trying to hire Don Shula to be the coach. And Shula said, and he read from part of the article, he said, "It says here that Donald Trump offered me a triplex in Manhattan." And Stephen, you'll enjoy this too. And we all laughed. And I used to sit just in front of him to the left, and Shula looked at me and said, "Jimmy, what's a triplex?" He was all about football. He didn't look, I mean, he started his day, as the Archbishop said, at Mass at 6:30 a.m. And he finished it at home just as Johnny Carson began his monologue. He worked. And that journey began after he graduated from John Carroll in 1951, before being drafted by the Cleveland Browns to start his NFL career.
In 1951, the Cleveland Browns drafted Shula as a defensive back, where he recorded 4 interceptions his rookie year.
Brilliant interception and return by Don Shula.
A member of the Ohio National Guard, Don was activated to military service in January of 1952, effectively keeping Shula out of football for almost a year. After 7 seasons as a player and 4 more as an assistant coach, Shula got his first head coaching job with the Baltimore Colts in 1963.
All right. Nice, Sam. You had that face right in his mustache. Good job.
And at 33, he became the youngest head coach in league history.
I think the toughest thing that I had to deal with was standing in front of the group and telling them what my plan was, and then to know that some of the players that were out there were much better players than I ever thought about being. So I had to, win them over.
Despite having success in Baltimore and in the wake of a loss to the New York Jets in Super Bowl III, Coach Shula would arrive at a crossroads in his career that would not only impact the league, but change the face of a franchise.
After losing, and Rosenblum was really upset with me, and my relationship wasn't the same. And then I heard about Miami. Ed Pope was a sports editor of the Miami Herald, and his assistant was Bill Broucher.
The role that Bill Broucher played was that he, I believe, had been a sports writer in Baltimore and had a relationship with Shula.
Bill Broucher was a John Carroll graduate, so he knew about me at John Carroll and then had followed me in my pro career.
Broucher relayed to my dad that yes, Don Shula was interested in the job.
Ed Pope, he said, "Why don't you talk to Robbie and see if he'll interview Shula for the job?" We sat down, we had the interview, and it all came together for me.
Just amazing what he went on to achieve when he came here to South Florida. Remember, in 1969, he went to the Super Bowl with the Colts. And the amount of Hall of Famers that he was able to produce as well is amazing. We're honored to have one of those Hall of Famers with us here today. We have several, as a matter of fact. You'll meet them as we go on through this evening. Now a man who is known for his toughness and grit. And to us who played with him and who know him, the way he was able to talk to Shula in a way that maybe no other player ever did. Please welcome Hall of Fame fullback Larry Csonka.
You know something? I'd rather face Nitschke and Butkus at the same time than stand up here and have to talk in the past tense about Coach Shula. When he came to us, we were the bottom of the league. He came into the meeting room and started talking in a language we barely could understand. We were the worst team in the league. Four years later, we were the best team in history. I don't have to tell you the mathematics. Anyone in this audience, and probably most of you, had some kind of personal experience or exchange with Coach Shula over the years. He was a force to be reckoned with. When I first met him, I didn't like him. He didn't like me. The only reason we hit it off is he couldn't trade me and get enough to make it worthwhile. Reality, folks, is reality. But then, as time went on, some of those sayings that he put up on the wall, some of those little cartoons that he put, some of those little clips that he would say at practice, his intensity, his drive, his demand started to pay off. And I thought, maybe he isn't full of crap. Maybe he really knows what he's talking about, but I still, another Ohio farm boy from the background, I couldn't swallow the whole thing at once. I still just, I don't know, it just didn't seem like all those things you could live that and be that. But there he was. And we went through it. We started to win. And as we won, we started to believe more and more, at least I did, and I think I speak on behalf of most of the fellas in the audience that played for him. His intensity was so great that it radiated upon you. And I started to believe maybe 70% of what he's saying is true. And in a 4-year journey, we went from the worst to the best. Not just the best ever. It was one step above. It's hard to fathom, it's hard to realize that he had envisioned that. He had that pictured in his mind. When we set out upon that season of 72, he kept reminding us of how it had ended the year before. He drew on that, fed on that, concentrated on that, and made us better players each and every week. His mission was to get the best out of us each week. He never said anything about a perfect season before it started. He said we would attack every game with the intensity that we would attack the Super Bowl, and we did. And it paid off. We got to the end, and we won the big one. We were at top of the mark. But the beat goes on. We came back the next year, started to win again. The team in 73 gave every appearance of being stronger than the team in 72. The pressure was unbearable. And in the second game, the test came. We went out to Oakland and played the Raiders in Oakland. We got there the day before the game and went into practice in the Oakland Stadium. Our locker room was under repair, so we had to use their locker room. They were gracious and allowed that. I went in and sat down at a locker for a fellow named Art Toms, who I'd played with at Syracuse for 4 years, defensive tackle. And I'm sitting at his locker, getting ready to go out on Saturday and practice the day before the game. And I looked down, and there under his shoes was the defensive game plan for the Oakland Raiders going up against us the next day. Now, where I came from in Ohio is a little different than where Don Shula came from in Ohio. I grew up to my ears or knees in cow shit. And I'm looking at that game plan thinking, I like what I'm seeing here. Because when we zig, they're going to zag, but if we know they're going to zag before we zig, guess what? We got a guy named Griese that'll figure something out. Wherever they go, we won't. We'll appear to go, but we won't. We'll go somewhere else. So that game plan means everything. Now the intensity, we're still undefeated. We're still going. The intensity's great. the day before the game. I take that report and look at it and think, now, who can I give this? About that time, Monty Clark, our offensive coordinator, walks up, puts his hand on my shoulder and said, "What's that?" I turned around and handed it to him and said, "Monty, I have no idea what that is, and to my knowledge, I never handed it to you. So just go away." He went away. That game was hard fought, went right down to the wire. We lost it 12-7. Our defense did never let them score, but they kicked field goals. When the game was over, and I got the bleeding stopped, we had lost our first game in well over a year. I'm in the locker room and Monty Clark walks by and I grabbed Monty and I said, "Monty, what the hell?" I said, "What happened to the report? Why didn't we capitalize on that?" He said, "Coach, when I took it to Coach, he wouldn't touch it, he wouldn't look at it. He said, throw it away. If we can't beat them straight up, then we won't." We didn't, and we didn't. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I come from a farm background in Ohio. Reality is reality. I understand that it makes a little less of me and perhaps even Monty Clark to talk about that, but the fact of the matter is, when people stand up here and talk about what Don Shula was and had the integrity and the grace and the fortitude, the heart, if you will, what we should all be about, all of us, to do what he did in a fair manner to everyone and do it honestly, how do you argue with that? I don't care if another team goes undefeated. I mean, I do, but I don't, because I know they won't have Don Shula's personality in there. That purity that was already spoken about on this stage and goes on will live on through him. Now, if they do it and they adhere to that policy and they follow that morality, God bless them, I'll move over and sit beside them. One time in a heated argument, and I'll close with this because I'm getting too long, I screamed at Don in his office. Well, I raised my voice at him in his office. And I said, "You know, you never let me have the last word. Not once in all the years, 4, 5, 6 years I've been playing for you, not once have I got the last word on it." He said, "Someday when you get the last word, you won't want it." And I thought, what the heck's he talking about? Now I know what he was talking about. I miss him. Thank you.
Do you know why they argued and sometimes didn't like each other so much? Because they were exactly alike, Larry and Coach Shula. I played one season with Larry Csonka in 1979. We came back from New England and got on the plane, and someone had stomped on Larry's foot. And he had his shoe off and his sock off, and his big toe was throbbing. It looked like something you'd see on the cartoon. And it was black and blue. Well, Larry and I had lockers next to each other. The next day, he came into the locker room, skipping down the hallway. I said, "Larry, what happened? You couldn't even walk yesterday." And he started to take off his sneaker and then his sock. And there, his big toe was the ugliest thing I'd ever seen in my life. There was a gigantic hole in the middle of it. He said, "I got up in the middle of the night and that thing was throbbing like a son of a gun. So I went into the garage and I got my drill." And he just drilled a hole in it, relieved the pressure, and he played that next week because nobody wanted to tell Shula they weren't going to play because they had an injury. That just didn't happen. Shula's expectations and accountabilities for his players and from his players led to the only perfect season in NFL history.
1970, South Florida sports changed forever.
Back in a huddle, let's go.
After 7 years with the Baltimore Colts, Don Shula moved south to become head coach of the Miami Dolphins, and the era of excellence began.
Shula and Joe Thomas together complemented the players that were here in the late 60s with an influx of new players to complement the existing group.
Let's go.
It was a completely different atmosphere, a work atmosphere, a blue-collar atmosphere.
Everything we do is for a reason.
Under Shula, practices were brutal, and winning was expected.
He commanded your respect. He was the combination of everything you're looking for in leadership. Integrity, toughness, commitment, this competitor, and he conveyed it to his team.
In only his second season as Miami's head coach, Shula led the Dolphins to the Super Bowl. But after the disappointing finish in 1971, the Dolphins had one goal.
He stood before us and he said, our objective this year is to go one game at a time and win every game. Every game will be the Super Bowl.
The next season, Don Shula led the Miami Dolphins to perfection. 17 wins, no losses, and one Super Bowl trophy, solidifying the greatest season in professional sports history.
Today's Super Bowl VII, the Miami Dolphins versus the Washington Redskins from the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. To the corner to Twilley's got him! Twilley! Touchdown!
The Dolphins have won Super Bowl VII, have completed the greatest season in NFL history.
He demanded perfection, and he instilled a lot of pride in us and had us believing that we could win no matter who we played. It was his leadership and assistant's leadership, we just all came together and won.
Following season was very much the same. The Dolphins dominated the National Football League, repeating as Super Bowl champion.
The game is over, and the Miami Dolphins are the champions of the pro football world. They have won the Super Bowl for the second time running.
And they were interested in learning and interested in doing the things that were necessary to be successful.
The Dolphins would have never won 2 Super Bowl championships without Coach Shula.
You know, we have a place in history in the NFL that nobody else has.
Following those extraordinary years of the 70s, Don continued his sustained success through the rest of the 70s and the 80s. In fact, in the 80s, there was a core group of players that we went to 2 more Super Bowls. Unfortunately, we didn't win either one of them. Joining us tonight on stage, you know, one of the greatest things about being a Dolphin is being with former players. He drafted us because we were so much alike in so many ways. We had the same kindness, toughness, and abilities. As you see, we've got a couple of Hall of Famers in front of us and another one who should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm going to bring up and introduce the man who's going to MC this wonderful panel. Please welcome former defensive end, member of the Killer Bees, Kim Bokamper.
Thank you very much. It's certainly my privilege to be here. Not a day that I look forward to from the time I met Don Shula, but I'm glad that we're all here to celebrate his life. Bum Phillips, the great head coach of the Houston Oilers, said of the man here that we're here today to celebrate his life, said of him that he's such a good coach, he can take his'n and beat urine, and he can take urine and beat his'n. Says something about the way the coach is. A couple of years later, he extended that himself to a little different level, different degree. After a game that we had played up in Baltimore, I think the Colts still up in Baltimore, a little Memorial Stadium, and we played a pitiful football game, horrible football game. It was embarrassing. Came back and had a meeting the next day to watch the tapes. And as we were in the film room with the entire team, Coach Shula watching the tapes, he just kept getting aggravated and more aggravated and more aggravated. Finally he said, "Shut the projector off and turn on the damn lights." He got up to the front of the team. And he said, "I'm embarrassed and disappointed in you guys like I've never been disappointed before. By God," he said, "I can go right down the street here to Carroll City High School, and I can get 22 guys. And I can go 8-8 in this goddamn league. What do I need you guys for?" Which I thought was one of the great quotes of all time when it came to bitching a team out. But that's what he was. He was tough. He was demanding. One thing I learned from him was always be prepared. Preparation, preparation, preparation. And I've lived with that the rest of my life. It's one thing that he gave me that I'll cherish until my last day. Prepare, prepare, prepare. And it's meant the world to me. He was a tough disciplinarian. He expected of a lot of his players. And like Csonka said, the one thing you were proud about for playing for the Dolphins, we won a lot of games, and we did it the right way. We did it the proper way. You didn't have to come out and see if our footballs were completely inflated. You didn't have to worry if there was somebody up in the stands with a camera looking down in your practice when you're in their stadium. Didn't have any of that with Don Shula. It was win and win fairly. He loved his family. He loved his team. He loved Miami. He was a religious man. I know the Padre talked a little long, the Padre, by the way, but talked about him going to Mass every day. And I asked him one day, I said, Coach, you go to Mass, you say confession every day. He says, yes, I do. I go 6 o'clock every morning. I say confession every day. I say, you're confessing what you said yesterday or what you're about to say today? He never really had an answer for me on that one. But I can tell you this. He was simply Don Shula, the greatest football coach in the history of the game. Joining me on the stage, two Hall of Famers and a would-be and should-be Hall of Famer. Joining me first, 5-time Pro Bowler in the All-NFL, numerous times Ring of Honor, Bob Baumhower, and a teammate for a long time. Hall of Famer, multi-time Pro Bowler, Larry Little, Hall of Famer, Ring of Honor, 1990 Hall of Famer, one of 3 retired jerseys with the Miami Dolphins, quarterback Bob Griese. How about a round for him? Bob, you came in 1977. The team was, the 17-0 guys were pretty much gone. We still had some of them on our team. We were fortunate to get some mentorship from them. But we were in a little bit of hole. Drafted you and A.J. Dewey in 1 year, and then we took off. Talk a little bit about when you first came to the Dolphins, your first meeting with Don Shula, a little bit about what he meant to you.
Okay, thank you. First off, I'd like to thank Nat for asking me to be a part of this, and the Dolphins allowed me to be a part of this. My nickname, he still calls me Bama, because I came from the University of Alabama in 1977 with A.J. But before I moved to Alabama as a senior in high school. But before that, I lived in North Palm Beach, Florida, and was a Palm Beach Gardens Gator when these two guys were going undefeated. And I'm watching my heroes here back in the day when I'm a Palm Beach Gardens Gator. And as far as what Coach Shula means to me, I can't tell you. I became a fan then, went to Alabama, played in the Senior Bowl. Just so happened that Miami was the coach of the South team. And I heard Bobby Beathard and George Young, I heard a conversation they had, don't get your hopes up, because we already have let Coach Shula told him not to fall in love with any of these Senior Bowl players. So he drafts A.J. and I #1, and I never forgot it. I said, he loves me, you know. So, but playing for Coach Shula, the opportunity that he gave me, I can't say enough about it, because I was such a big fan. I was a fan of his. I was a fan of the Dolphins. Fan of the Dolphins and their way. Always first-class organization. These guys here, I'm sitting next to Larry Csonka right now. I'm pinching myself. I'm still a big fan. These are still my heroes. And then I look at things, especially as you get older. You know, I met my wife down here. We've been married 33 years now. The things that you hear these folks talk about that Coach Shula coached, and he did. He coached us to be the best that we could be. And whether it was football or whether it was being a man or being a person, he wanted us to be the best that we could be. And he meant it. And then I also, with the opportunity, when Mike Shula went up to Alabama to coach up there and did a hell of a job, by the way, I saw firsthand what a family man Coach Shula was. He's the real deal. He loved his family. He was just real in so many ways. And the opportunity he gave me is to really learn what it is to be a man that wants to be the best that he can be in all things that he does. And so from a football point of view, obviously, we all know what the man did and what he did. But when it comes to people like me and the other players, I don't know how many, it's got to be thousands of us that Coach Shula inspired to be the best that we could be. That's what Coach Shula means to me. He really inspired me to be the best that I could be for my family, co-workers, teammates, all the above there. I can't say thank you enough for that.
Well, Larry, you were there. We were there when the coach first rolled in what, 1970, right? And you found out pretty soon that Shula was famous for work ethic and particularly dedication to practice. He loved practice. You, on the other hand, you didn't care for it so much. And so that led to some incidents with you where you didn't quite see eye to eye, let's say. How did that relationship work out with you? And look, I don't know, nobody else ever was able to pull the wool over Shu's eyes and miss a practice. Somehow, some way you did it. I think it took a historic thought process and moment to do it, but why don't you fill us in a little bit?
Well, when he first came here in 1970, he had a press conference at the DuPont Plaza Hotel, and I was at home, and I said, let me go down and meet the new coach. I went down to meet him. I said, hey, Coach Shula, I'm your right guard. My name is Larry Little. First thing he asked me was, how much do you weigh? I said, 285. And he walked off and didn't say another word to me. I said, oh, hell. I said, oh. But anyway, 1970 was the first year we had a major strike in the NFL. And we came to camp that Sunday night. And he started going over the schedule. We had a preseason game that next Saturday. And he started going over the schedule. We'll be on the field at 7 o'clock in the morning. We'll be back on the field in pads at 10 o'clock. We'll be back on the field again at 3 o'clock. And we'll be back on the field again at 7 o'clock, 4 times a day. I said, my goodness. And he playing under George Wilson. On a hot day, George would tell us in 1969, on a hot day, George, oh, what the hell, go jump in the pool. Real for a rude awakening. And that Monday, we practiced. That Tuesday, we practiced. That Monday, we practiced hard. I told my roommate the night before, I said, you know what? I'm not going to let this man kill me. So about halfway through the practice, I came up with an idea what I would do. About 45 minutes into the practice, I started swooning. And I hit the ground, boom. They rushed me into like I passed out. They rushed me into the locker room, not knowing they were going to pack me in ice. When I got in the locker room, they started packing me in ice. I said, oh, hell, I got to think of plan B now. So I jumped up like I was having hallucinations to get that ice off of me. So when he sent me to the doctor that Wednesday, that one doctor said, Larry, I don't see anything wrong with you. You didn't have a heat stroke. Send me to another doctor. I can't find anything wrong with you. So they finally sent me to an internist. And the internist said, well, Larry, I tell you what, you're one of the healthiest specimens I've ever seen. Now, I did find a slight sinus problem that you had. I said, well, put that on, doc. And that was one of the times I really pulled something over his eye. He's, to this day, until the day he left us, he didn't know that was a big act. That nothing was wrong with me. I just wanted to get out of practice. And I played the game that Saturday against Pittsburgh in Jacksonville for our first preseason game. That Saturday. And I played and all went out well after that.
Things worked out pretty well for you, I believe.
It did, yes.
Hi, Bob.
You think he didn't know? He knows all. He knows everything.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Hey, Bob, you kind of have a different relationship with, obviously you had a great relationship as a player and coach, and you spent a lot of time with him afterwards, and personally got to know him and then spent a lot of time with him. So you have a lot of things, but one of the things about you that's different from today's game, you called your own plays. You're basically, your offensive coordinator on the field, but you did collaborate with Coach Shula on the sideline. And was that always were you guys always in sync? Were you simpatico, so to speak?
First thing I want to say is Coach had he was a softie, right, David? He was a softie. I'll tell you a story a little bit in a minute, but yeah, I mean, if I called, and he saw how hard we worked during the week to get ready for a game. So if during the ball game I made a dumbass call and threw an interception, and I come off the sideline, boy, he would be right there in my face. What the hell was that? So I'd go sit down on the bench, and about 5 minutes later, here comes Coach Shula. He comes over and he says, "All right, Bob. All right, go in and get him the next time. Now let's go." He'd bitch at you, but then he'd make. He's retired. I'm retired. This was like the last 10 years. We go to lunch at Gulfstream Park. He's a bad handicapper. And I'm a bad handicapper. We just go there for lunch and we talk and all that other stuff. But invariably, people will come by and ask him, "Hey, Coach Shula, can we get a picture with you?" So, there's 3 of them and one guy taking the picture and 3 in the picture. So after it's over with, immediately, I've seen this every time, Coach Shula would say, "Now take one of me by myself." I could say that was coming every time we would go on. But anyway, he had a soft heart, and he was a good guy. I lost my father when I was 10, and when I came to the Dolphins and Coach Shula came, I was 25 and he was 40, something like that. And he was that figure for me, a father figure. Somebody that I looked up to, and I did my work. I prepared. I took film home and studied, and he knew that. And so during the ball game, if something would happen, and he knew I made a dumb play, most of the time he'd just let me pass, and he wouldn't go it. But no, we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun, and I miss him. I really do.
I think we all do. It's safe to say that Coach Shula has a special place in all our hearts, and certainly everybody here in the building. I want to thank you guys for being here to reminisce about the coach tonight. He really made us more than teammates. He really helped us become a family through the generations. You look up here and you see all the different players that have come, and you have relationships with all of them, and I think it's all because of Shula bringing us all together and bringing the like people together that thought like this the same way. So now let's take a look at how he was able to balance his love for football and family with another video up on the screen.
The thing that really is one of my coaching philosophies is somehow, some way, get the winning edge in the ball game.
I like to say that Coach Shula is the winningest coach in football because of 2 assets. One was repetition. We did things over and over and over again where it became second nature.
Get something out of the drill. Everything we do is for a reason.
And then the other thing is preparation. I mean, there was no stone unturned in getting you prepared to play the game.
We need a drive. We got to put it together. We got to start running with the ball, pass protecting, making plays.
I think his willingness to accept sacrifice as a factor, that drive, that motivation, that attention to detail, if you will, not just of himself, but expecting you to do the same thing, was the driving force that led to perfection.
He was a driving force in his own
In
right.
1958, Don Shula married Ohio native Dorothy Bardish. They had 5 children: Dave, Donna, Sharon, and the youngest, Mike. One thing was for certain: football was part of the fabric of the Shula home. In late February of 1991, after an 8-year battle with breast cancer, Dorothy Shula passed away in her home. She was 57 years old.
We always knew growing up that the priority was his job and, helping the Dolphins be as good as they can be. So that was always priority one, and that's where our mom stepped in and was really, I remember saying at her funeral that she was the great communicator, and that we knew that he cared and that he was on top of what was going on. He might not have been physically there as much as he would have liked to have been because of the job demands, but he certainly knew everything that was happening, whether it was good or bad.
Being able to be around Dad during training camp and being his roommate during the course of the summer, there was a lot more time spent than obviously our sisters could. All of a sudden when the head coach, who was your dad, stopped practice and, "Mike, come over here," and he'd have a big smile on his face, or he'd have you throw to some of the receivers in the off season, or he made you feel so loved and important.
He'd see you on the field, he just would light up with this big smile, and that meant everything.
As you can tell, Don Shula wanted the best for everybody around him. Certainly his family, his friends, especially his players too. When I retired, I walked into Coach Shula's office and I hated being there. We all hated going into that little office, every one of us. It was a terrible place to be. And I think he jacked up his chair a good 6 inches because I felt like the smallest person ever when I sat in that room. And I said, "Coach, I'm going to retire." He said, "What do you mean you're going to retire?" I said, I'm leaving. "What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I got this job with NBC in New York." He said, "You're going to quit?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Nobody quits this game." I said, "Well, Coach, I do." And I could see the wheels turning. He's thinking, I'm not going to get anything for him. I can't trade him. Well, maybe I can trade him. He said, "Jimmy, Al Davis always liked you. I can trade you to Oakland. You like wine. It's right next to wine country." I said, "No. Coach, I quit." And then he sat for a while and he said, "Tough decision, huh?" I said, "You betcha." He said, "Well, then go out and make it the best decision ever." That was him. One of the people I got to work with at NBC turned out to be a good friend of the Shula family and turned out to be an Emmy Award-winning broadcaster as well. Please welcome Jim Gray.
What is perfect? Is anything or anyone? Most of us have been told that no one and nothing is. So I decided to look it up in the dictionary. The definition for perfect is desirable elements, qualities, or characteristics to be as good as it is possible to be. Well, that's the description of Don Shula. It was the theme of his entire life and all its countless iterations. As a man, a coach, a father, a husband, and a great friend. I'm most appreciative to be able to stand here today and to share my thoughts and experiences of Don. And I thank Mary Ann and the entire Shula family. Even Coach John Madden went out of his way to ask me to express his deep appreciation. It's fitting that Don and the 72 Dolphins earned the perfect season. They were as good as it is possible to be. When I first met Coach 44 years ago, I was just starting my career in sportscasting. From that initial interview, I could have never imagined that it would lead to a lifetime friendship, or that Don would later become my broadcast partner. Coach coached me about life. He offered so much wisdom and guidance, and he told me early on that if I was going to be around him, he insisted and demanded that I become as good as it is possible to be. He also permitted me to see a side of him that wasn't that public. I observed the love, dependence, respect that he had for Dorothy in raising the children while allowing him to pursue his professional dreams. I witnessed his sorrow and his anguish with the tragic passing of Dorothy to breast cancer. Yet as difficult as it was, he did it with strength, grace, trust, and faith. You see, Don Shula trusted himself, so it was easy for him to trust others. He came from an era that gave and was very unselfish and had a deep appreciation of loyalty, honesty, and integrity. When he retired, he did so with the most wins in the history of the National Football League, 347, a record that stands almost 3 decades later. I once asked him around then if he were starting over, if he felt he could replicate or duplicate the amazing career that he had. He said he felt he would be successful, but no, it would not be possible to do it again. No one had gone undefeated before or since, and he said, how could anyone, including me, say that it could be done again? He also said that in this day and age, he didn't think it would be able to survive as a head coach for 33 seasons in the NFL because no franchise would allow any coach to stay around that long. But in his day, he did. And it was not an accident. His sights were focused on always looking to improve. He always wanted to be better tomorrow than he was yesterday, striving to get the most out of himself and pushing others to do better on all of those fronts. And so many others, he succeeded. Don was so proud of the perfect season. Just outside of Phoenix, 36 years later, I was with Coach and Mary Ann at Super Bowl 42. The NFL's lone perfect season was in jeopardy of being duplicated by the undefeated New England Patriots. We were doing the live radio broadcast, and in the pregame, we interviewed the great John Wooden, the Wizard of Westwood. He told Don not to worry, that no matter the outcome of the game, what he had achieved would stand forever, that his legacy was set and secure. But Don being Don, that Shula being Shula, he wanted no part of that sentiment. He even said to Coach Wooden, you had 4 undefeated seasons. You made it appear easy. But here in the NFL, we've only had 1, and it's really hard. As we sat together and watched the game after that interview, the tight 4th quarter unfolded, and the faith that Don had was also on display. He used his connection with God by channeling it to David Tyree. How else could an unknown wide receiver have caught a pass from Eli Manning on the side of his helmet while being tackled? It sure seemed like divine intervention. Even God must have known how much that meant to Don. He had the perfect ending. Why do records matter? Because they represent the ultimate achievements and excellence. They touch perfection. They represent Don Shula. In life, Coach moved from success to significance, leaving a lasting impression on the league, the community, and the country. He was a very rare man. My wife and I, Fran, we consider it one of the true blessings of our lives to have been able to have spent so much time with Coach and Mary Ann, laughing and learning. We will always be grateful and will continue to honor his memory and legacy that will forever burn so bright. Ralph Waldo Emerson once wrote that when nature removes a great person, man explores the horizon for a successor. But none comes and none will, for his class is extinguished with him. Don Shula, my dear friend, who was as good as it is possible to be, was in a class all his own for his perfection and everything he did that led to it. May God rest his soul and bless Mary Ann and the entire Shula family.
You know, I know Larry Little and Larry Csonka and Bob Griese and some others are going to disagree with this, but I don't think the undefeated team was his greatest football accomplishment. I think Don Shula's greatest football accomplishment was going to the Super Bowl 17, with a defensive team called the Killer Bees and a running game and a quarterback named David Woodley, to 2 years later going back to the Super Bowl with a passing team and a quarterback named, well, number 13, the OG as we call him. The winning edge is how it all started when Don Shula changed football again in 1983.
Going out on the field with him, I always felt like you had a chance. As weird as that is, going out on the field with Don Shula, knowing what he'd already done in the 70s, you felt pretty good.
Don Shula is back in the Super Bowl.
The Dolphins have won the AFC Championship game and are now in Super Bowl 19.
In the 80s, it was 2 more conference championships and 2 Super Bowl appearances.
I'll tell you, they were both very different, but the thing that made them the same was the teamwork that we had, the unity that we had on those 2 teams. The one team was more of a ball control type of team, and 3 yards in a cloud of dust and good defense. And then, of course, the 84 team was Marino's second year. So we did things a little bit different when Marino was the quarterback.
The Miami Dolphins had secured the quick-release arm of Dan Marino in the 1983 draft. A change from the run-centric game of the 70s to a diverse passing attack was in the works.
You know, when you rank all the things that Don Shula did that were really good, Don Shula went from a real conservative offense, beat people with a good defense, don't make mistakes, to seeing this guy throw the ball and going, things are about ready to change here in South Florida.
I think what made him most successful was the competitive drive, you know, wanting to win, understanding, you know, his players, and changing. You know, he changed some. I mean, he changed when I came in and we became more of a wide open offense, and he was more of a run-oriented offense, you know, kind of before I got here, recognizing talent, recognizing the people he has to work with, and getting the most out of them.
You know, that was taking the talent that you had, analyzing their abilities, and then give them the opportunity to do what they did the best.
We are live from the Orange Bowl in Miami, Florida.
One thing that I got from Coach Shula, besides listening to, hanging on every word that he says, he had every team well prepared. You know, I can't say that there's never been a game that I went out there and played in that the whole team wasn't prepared to the best of our ability.
Marino, not Moore. Moore takes it in.
His competitive nature is amazing, I think. He won't lose. He refuses to lose.
and he has the willingness to work as hard to give him the best chance of winning.
1993 will forever be remembered when Coach Shula surpasses George Halas's career win record.
So the Dolphins win 19-14. Coach Shula being mobbed by media, by team, by coaches on the far side and by fans as he becomes the all-time winningest coach in the history of the National Football League.
Yeah, that was just, remarkable because carrying me off the field wasn't an easy deal. I mean, that was a load. But to be up there in the air and all the happiness and realizing what the accomplishment was, it's one of those moments in time that you'll never forget.
And that was a great day, that's for sure. We've got another great panel to just have another question or two about. I got a call one day from a guy who was my best friend on the team. And I don't know if Archbishop Wensky is still here. I don't want to offend him, but I get a call. And what happened before every game, those that were Catholic, Coach Shula had a priest come, and we had a mass before each game in the team hotel, on the road, at home, wherever we were. And he would play the role of the altar boy. He would actually have a chalice, and he would hand us the chalice. I get a call one day from my best friend and roommate, and he says, I got a question for you. Yes? He said, how in the world can Shula cuss me out Sunday through Sunday and then hand me that chalice on Sunday morning? How can he do that? So when the coach retired, I asked him that. He said, Jimmy, there's no contradiction there. I wanted the best for you. I wanted the best for him. I wanted the best for every single person. And if that meant cussing you out Sunday to Sunday, I did. And if it meant handing you that chalice on Sunday morning, I did that too. And man was number 80, Joe Rose. Joe?
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you very much. Before we start, we're going to be real quick. We got to catch up. Kim Bokamper went 25 minutes by himself. But I had to get you, man. I'll just say this. There's been some great stuff, and the theme has been consistent with Coach Shula, but you never wanted to make a mistake during the game because you got your ass chewed. He never missed anything if you were walking off the field on offense or defense. And you knew that was only going to be half of it because you still had film study coming up, and it was going to be just as bad. So it motivated you and made you a better player. There's no question about it. And the other part is, how many people out here that are here with us tonight find themselves watching a football game on TV and going, man, Shula never put up with that shit. How many times do you find yourself doing that?
I do it.
Man, he'd never allow that one practice a day shit. Woo! All right, let's get right to it. Great panel, great teammates. Hall of Famer Dan Marino. Hall of Famer Dwight Stephenson. And our man, one of the great linebackers for the Miami Dolphins, Johnny Offerdahl, the Bagel Man. Great stories and a great group. We're just sitting there in the back talking about everything. Danny, we went from a running football team in the 70s, zonk, murk, kick, and pounded people. We go to 2 Super Bowls. After the Super Bowl, the last one, Super Bowl 17, we draft you. First round. And things changed. We went to a passing team. You had success early. I think it kind of surprised everybody, the change that took place. Talk about some of that success and how it happened early.
Well, so I think Joe, first of all, you saw in the video, Coach said it, you basically, you got to adapt as a coach, and that's what he did. He adapted, he changed, he evolved with the personnel he has, and if you're a good football coach, which he was a great football coach, obviously, yeah, that's what you do. And we had the personnel, like there's guys sitting here, like there's Nat Moore, there's Duper's here. I don't know if Clayton's here right now, but I mean, I was blessed when I came in to have these guys, and Jimmy and Joe and Tony Nathan, and just to be able to throw the ball to them. So we had that kind of talent. So any coach that, he adapts to that, and that's really what he did. But I think for me, he put a lot of pressure on me early. And I remember going to summer training camp, or it was mini camp after I got drafted. And he called me in the office, but he didn't call me in to yell at me. He called me in to challenge me, and he said, I want you to take the playbook home, and I want you to study it as if you're going to be our starter day one when you come here. Now, they had David Woodley, and I understood that. But then he also said that you're going to call your own plays in camp. And it just put that extra pressure that you had to have as a quarterback, as a young guy, to understand learning the offense. And I thought that was genius, personally. It really was. When you look back on it, to put that pressure on me as a young quarterback, it made me learn and adapt and evolve all that so much quicker, and that's what he was great at.
Dwight, you came in playing for Bear Bryant, win a national championship, got drafted in the second round by the Miami Dolphins. Now you're playing for Don Shula. I was just talking to you. Two tough cookies, man, right off. What's the difference between the two guys, and what made Coach Shula so special for you? Another guy had great success early on.
When you compare Coach Bryant to Coach Shula, they're very, very similar. Very organized. They were able to make us better as a people. As football players, they got more out of us, I think, than anyone else would have. And just wanted to be perfect. And then also, they made us helped to make us better people. Coach Shula wanted us to teach us about life, things that if you quit on the field, you quit on things in life and that sort of thing. He taught us things about life as well as Coach Bryant. And they wanted to develop good people. So I think they had that very much in common.
That's good stuff. And John, you come from Western Michigan. Small school, come in there, and all of a sudden, right off the bat, I still remember up in Atlanta, and we're up there scrimmaging against them. You're the starting linebacker, making tackles all over the place. Talk about that jump from Western Michigan to now you're playing for a guy that's got a perfect team and going to Super Bowls.
So Coach Shula, 1986, he already had the perfect season. He already had some Super Bowls. He got back into the Super Bowl in the early 80s. He was hungry to get back in. And I, coming from Wisconsin, never playing on a winning football team in high school and college, show up at camp with Coach Shula, Dan, Dwight, all ready to get back into the Super Bowl. I was intimidated. I was unbelievably awestruck. The only thing I could do is do what he expected, which is to perform at the highest level and to, quite honestly, keep the expectations so high. Hey, can I tell a story?
John, you go take over.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
I'm looking at the clock.
Bo took 20 friggin' minutes. You go ahead and take it. Go ahead.
So, the expectation is one thing, but the ability for Coach Shula to get the most out of his players was unbelievable. And for a kid out of Wisconsin coming onto the team, understanding that this guy is going to make me a better player. My first meeting with Coach Shula was actually at the Shula Golf and Hotel, pre-game, in the toilet. You're gonna laugh at this, but this is a true story. I wake up sick game day. I'm not feeling good. In the middle of breakfast, as I'm packing down the pancakes, I gotta go to the bathroom immediately. I run into the bathroom, throw myself down to, there's only two, stalls. I throw myself down on the first stall, and I, get sick, right? Right next to me, I don't know how he knew it was John Offerdahl. He goes, "Offerdahl, that's you?" I go, "Oh my God, who is that?" I looked down, I saw Coach Shula's shoe right next to me in the stall. I said, "Coach, it's me." He goes, "You're playing." And I was like, was that a question or a declaration? I said, yeah, I guess I'm playing. So quickly, I'm in the ambulance, I go to the pregame, I don't see anything, I play the first half. At halftime, I'm getting IVs, go out to the second half. The next thing I know, I get a ball thrown at me, and I'm a linebacker, right in my head. Get stuck in my helmet. I grab it, I start running up the sideline. You can't make this stuff up, Joe. I'm not making this up. So I see on the left side a big offensive lineman who's got an angle on me. And I see on the right side, Coach Shula, just running down the sideline saying, I could hear him, "You gotta score, you gotta score." And I was not feeling good, right? So the lineman had the angle, he tackles me, I fall on the sideline, and all I could hear is Shula on the top of me saying, "You gotta score, you gotta score." So from "you gotta play," like you gotta get in the game, to "you gotta score," like you gotta perform. I looked up at him, and that's the last thing I remember before I threw up on his shoe. The same shoe I saw in that bathroom. Now, I'm not making this up. This is a consummate Coach Shula story. Get it?
Outstanding. You're a good Christian guy. I'm going to buy that story then.
Bottom line,
some guys we don't trust, but that's a good one. Hey, Danny, Dwight, John, thank you guys very
Joe,
much. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys, all of you guys. And we talked so much about Coach Shula's legacy, but he wasn't finished. Did a lot more after his coaching career.
Needless to say, this week has been the most difficult. This is the day that you never thought was going to happen.
In 1995, Don Shula announced his retirement after 33 seasons in the NFL. From 1970 through Shula's retirement, the Dolphins posted the best winning percentage of any team in professional sports.
When I think back about my coaching career, obviously winning the most games. I mean, you play the game to see who wins. And at the end of the season, the team that has the most wins, the best record, the Super Bowl, they're regarded as the best team. And if you look at your entire coaching career, if you've won the most games. So I take a lot of pride in having won the most games.
Four-time NFL Coach of the Year, led 8 Hall of Fame players on his way to earning an NFL record 347 wins, topped off by 2 Super Bowl titles. Shula's winning edge was capped off as his 2 sons inducted his legacy in Canton, Ohio.
This is the ultimate honor. I look at the people sitting around me, the names of so many of the great players and coaches who are members of the Hall of Fame. It's only 50 miles from Grand River to Canton, but it took me 67 years to travel that distance.
After retirement, Shula and his wife Marianne invested the Shula name into hotels, golf courses, and his now famous steakhouses, along with his foundation for breast cancer research.
But my wife Marianne is just a business genius. She just loves it, knows everything about it.
While no longer coaching, Don stayed busy spending time with his many grandkids, enjoying the Miami sunshine. They even found time to visit the White House along with the rest of the 1972 team to be honored for their perfect season. Never far away from the Dolphins organization, he was a constant presence at home games, cheering on the team he loved. Don Shula's legacy is not only reflected in the records he holds, but in the players who respect and admire him over the years, in the bloodlines that continue the family tradition, in the iconic symbols that carry his name throughout our community. And it's reflected in Dolphin fans, now and for generations to come, who will attend games and cheer on their team at 347 Don Shula Drive.
I'd like to be remembered as a coach that did things the right way, adhered to the rules, and always had his teams ready to play, and was very competitive, and just was an asset to the game as opposed to
doing things that you weren't very proud of and were detrimental to the game.
You know, once you were a friend of Don Shula's, you were a friend forever. And every single one of his friends that I had met, I had become good friends with, it seems. And our next speaker is one of them. He's a terrific businessman here in South Florida, and used to go to school at St. Thomas, Biscayne College at the time, and watch us practice from that pool area, if you remember, Csonka and guys. His name is Michael Joseph, terrific businessman, a good friend of mine, and a great friend of the Shula family. Please welcome Michael Joseph.
Thank you, Jimmy. Today, as we honor Coach Don Shula, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Mary Ann for this tremendous honor. Today, we've heard from some of the greatest players of all time who've shared so many stories, not only about their coach, but their good friend, Don Shula. It's not a surprise Don was loved by so many. Don raised 5 wonderful children together with Dorothy. Don loved to talk about his children and their many accomplishments. He was so very proud of them and loved them very much. I also jotted down some adjectives of how would we describe Don? Honest, integrity, hardworking, generous, trustworthy, kind, compassionate, thoughtful, shy, humble, elegant, and classy. Don was a devout Catholic who attended Mass every day. One of his idols was Mother Teresa, who he met and had a rosary from her. Early on, Don volunteered his time and raised money for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital as far back as the 70s when he arrived in Miami. Don and Mary Ann visited the armed forces, wanting to give back to the troops, went to Afghanistan, enjoyed that time, and he loved to spend time with the troops. Don loved his family and always enjoyed spending time in storytelling. Irving Fryer often talks about when Don walked into a room and saw Mary Ann, how he would light up. The two of them were like kids on a permanent honeymoon. They complemented each other in so many ways. When Don would run off the field and look up at that box going off the field and see Mary Ann, that was a special thing that I would often just love to see. They traveled the world together, often with family. One of the last cruises that they went on was through the Mediterranean, with about 40 of their grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Went to Venice, Rome, Monte Carlo, you name it. Mary Ann and Don enjoyed every moment of their life and just enjoyed watching the children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren enjoy each moment and spending time together at this culmination of his life. I truly loved to go to dinner with Don, Mary Ann, and my wife Leslie, and watch the number of people every time we would go to dinner that would come up and ask for an autograph, tell a story. Everyone had a story, and Don would sit back patiently and love to hear every story. Never was an imposition, and he always had time. There was never a negative press article about Don his entire life in Miami, never one. Don lived his life with class and elegance, and Don had a special presence. Walking on the field with Don before the game was one of the moments that I always cherished. Walking back to the tunnel, I would get goosebumps when the fans would continue to cheer his name and chant. Don never missed a family Christmas party at my home, nor my daughter Lauren or Michael's birthdays. We enjoyed our trips to Spanish Bay in California with Mary Ann. Took me to play Tahima. I wasn't very good, but he took me anyway. And our trips to the Bahamas, we even played in the Michael Jordan golf tournament. He allowed me to be front and center when he was Sportsman of the Year for Sports Illustrated. and obviously at the induction into the Hall of Fame. Dozens of Super Bowls that I attended with him. We were family in every way. Our close ties grew over decades, and our families shared everything together and included each other in all of our celebrations of joy and consoled each other in our times of sorrow. 6 months before Don passed, he arrived 30 minutes early to the services of my nephew, Christopher, 23 years old, who had passed due to a rare cancer, and sat in the first row at Epiphany Church. Don truly knew how to treat people and to make everyone feel very special. Don was a true winner. He loved to compete, and you wanted to be on his side. Don was a great read of people, which translated to his abilities to draft and attract the very best. Don took the time to look at the total person and had the ability to connect with people and help them reach the goals that they never thought were possible. He drafted some of the best ever, the greatest quarterback of all time, Dan Marino, and Don knew who was a hard worker, and he also knew who needed to work harder. He asked questions and always was interested to know more about people. Don lived his life the way he coached football. You've heard it all here tonight. He was disciplined, organized. He loved structure. He loved perfection. He lived for perfection. He always said if you're going to do something, it makes no sense to do it halfway. And if you listen to some of the NFL films, you hear David talk about just that very thing when he was young during the '72 season. Don was meticulous. The way he dressed always looked perfect. And that presence was unbelievable. You wanted to be around him. Don loved the Miami Dolphins, evidenced by his continued support and attendance to every game, helping the franchise in any way he could. He truly loved the Dolphins. We have something that has never, ever been achieved that no one else has. We have the winningest coach in NFL history, the Miami Dolphins, in our town. When you listen to Larry Csonka, Manny Fernandez, and the NFL's perfect season tape, and you hear what was accomplished, you know that this was not a mistake. This team put together perfectly by Don Shula, complemented by the greatest team of all time. This team was special, had the mental, physical strength, determination, and sacrifice necessary to be perfect. They were willing to sacrifice for each other for the good of the team. The opportunity to share something that had never been accomplished before. Don had the vision and capacity to create this environment, which still stands today and is revered by all. Imagine the world if we were able to follow the principles of character, integrity, honesty that Don was able to accomplish on and off the field. Just imagine how our world would be a better place to live. Don left everything he touched in this world better than he found it. Don spoiled each and every one of us, making us think that this was much easier than it actually was. All of his lifetime achievements on and off the field. Don, we are so much better for having known you. You made us better people, even those of us that never had the opportunity to meet you. Don's birthday is January 4th, 1930, which happens to be the same as my late father, who passed away at 62 years of age. There was a special bond that Don and I had that I will cherish and never forget. Don, I miss our left, right, center games. For those of you that don't know what that game is, Google it, buy it for $4, and it will be the best family entertainment that you ever had to spend with your family. Don, I know you're with us today watching us. I love you from the bottom of my heart. Miss you very much. Trust me, you'll never be forgotten. We'll honor you forever.
Now, Coach Shula's effort at perfection did not end when he retired from the National Football League. And we all benefited along the way. The community, the players, his former coaches, And nobody understands that better than the Miami Dolphins organization. Please welcome the owner of the Miami Dolphins, Stephen Ross.
Thank you, Jimmy, and thank all the participants, and thank everyone for being here tonight. It's an honor for me to be here today to celebrate the life of Coach Shula with his family, friends, his players, and the best fans in the National Football League. When I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to buy the Dolphins, I jumped in because I love the game. I love the game of football because what it represents, the hard work, the toughness, the character, the teamwork, overcoming adversity, and the drive to be the best and to win. Coach Shula only instilled those qualities in everyone and enabled those entities to achieve because of that. He made the game of football better. It is not just all of these wonderful achievements, the perfect season, the 347 wins, but it's how he accomplished that with integrity, determination, and consistency. This will be an indelible mark for this franchise, for the game of football, and all of our fans. I know I didn't really know Don Shula when I bought the team, but I had the opportunity to meet him and spend some time. But it was really the time that I spent with his players, which was often dinners before the games and other events that we have, and there are many, that I got to really understand and know Don Shula. You heard them tonight. There's no way that a person like that could not have a major impact on your life and the impact he had on this franchise and on this city. Don Shula is the Miami Dolphins. To Marianne, the entire Shula family, and our alumni, players, and all of our fans, I want you to know that it is my mission and dedication to continue the legacy of what Don Shula has brought to the Miami Dolphins, this community, and this country. We will continue to do that, and I really thank him and have learned, and I think we're all better for it. I'd now like to introduce his son, Dave Shula.
Quite a chore finishing with the roster of speakers that we've had today. Mr. Ross, Commissioner Goodell, family, friends, former players, Dolphin fans, thank you so much for being here and allowing us to celebrate a life well lived. I'm going to talk about 4 things that represent what Dad stood for: faith, family, football, and community. He was very devout, has been said often tonight. And that devotion to his faith sustained him when times got tough, both personally and professionally. And it also humbled him during undefeated seasons and receiving all the accolades that he had. And one thing that I've learned to appreciate about his faith and the way he lived his life is that as devoted and devout as he was to it, he never looked down upon anybody that didn't have those same beliefs. He wanted everybody to be a Dolphin fan. He was accepting, he listened, he wanted to learn. And I think that's a great lesson that's sorely missed in this world today. Family. Dad loved two women in his life. Our mom, Dorothy, and Archbishop, you would be proud to know that, true to his faith, Don and Dorothy had 5 children and 6 years. He also used to say that during that time, he had 4 different jobs. And the early line on Don Shula was, he liked to fool around and he couldn't keep a job. As a dad, even though he was pulled away many, many hours doing what he loved to do, coach his football team, we always knew as a family, my 3 sisters and my brother Mike, that he was there. He cared. And when he was physically present, he was totally present. With us in spirit, and then just like he was with his players, there was always a post-game review. I remember my brother Mike would say the same thing. Riding home from games, my sisters would say the same things about their different contests, whether it was in the equestrian field or whatever it might be. There was a review of what happened. What could you have done better? The good things and the negative things. And the reason behind it was that he wanted us to be the best that we could be. I remember that at times he was home, and Mom would ask him to, say, clean out the garage. That became a family affair. And we just didn't show up and clean out the garage. We had a system. There was a way that you swept with a broom that didn't create any dust as you went back and caught all the dust that there was to catch going forward. We were going to do it the right way. But in the end, we knew that all he wanted was for us to be the best that we could be, just like his players. When Mom passed, much too young, Dad was fortunate to meet Mary Ann. And what a lovely, lovely relationship that they had, and her family melding with our family. And she was there for the end of his career, and through it all, they traveled the world. They had many, many great friends, great events together. He was truly, truly a happy man. And when times got tough, you were there. Thank you. Football, a game he loved from an early age. He loved to compete. And that competitive spirit never left him. A few months before he passed, I was sitting out on his back porch having lunch, overlooking Biscayne Bay and the city of Miami skyline, and a seagull flew by. And if you remember Dad, he had a very healthy head of hair that had turned basically pure white at this point. And I looked at that seagull fly by and I said, Dad, look at that seagull. He has the same color hair you do. Without missing a beat, he looks at me and he goes, at least I still have my hair. He loved the game and what it could do to help people become successful the rest of their lives. He loved the team building part. He loved the fact that he could pull guys together, push them farther than they thought they could go to be the best they could be individually and collectively. That meant everything for him. And I think he knew in the back of his mind that those lessons were going to translate into success off the field, as you've heard many of the guys talk about how much those lessons meant to them in their post-football careers. He loved the NFL. The commissioner talked about his time on the competition committee. And if you think about it, the rule changes that were made during the 70s and the 80s to expand the game, to make it put more points on the board, it wasn't to his advantage. He went from the 70s Dolphins and ground and pound to the 80s Dolphins with Danny saying, "Coach, let's fill the air with footballs today." He understood what those rule changes meant and adapted. He truly was a life learner. He also understood that the game, at the end of the day, was a means of entertainment for the millions and millions of fans worldwide in how the game grew. And he got that early on. And I can honestly say that in all the times that we were out together, that he never once became short or abrupt with somebody that was seeking an autograph and literally would put a piece of paper and a pen in between his fork and his mouth. He got it. He understood how important the fans were to the success of not just his team, but what he came to believe as his league, the NFL. That translated into his belief in giving back, his sense and love of community, of making the place that he drew his living from, raised his family in, a special place, better than what it was when he moved into the community. He used his platform for many, many causes, all for the betterment of not only those that may have been sick with cancer, as was the cause for the Don Shula Foundation for breast cancer research, but also for those that maybe had special needs and his great affiliation with Shot Communities and other national organizations around the world. He would say toward the end of his life, when he was leaving us at some kind of function in his wheelchair, he'd say, "When I leave, I know you'll be talking about me. Please, please be kind." He never was much of a person that appreciated music, I can say. Growing up, I remember him getting in my car a few times as a teenager, and I had some rock and roll on, and he'd turn that off. But towards the end, he became enamored with the sound of music and watched that video over and over. And I'm going to take the words, paraphrase from one of America's great singer-songwriters, Warren Zevon. And I think these are words that Dad would share with you here today. When you get up in the morning and see that crazy sun, keep me in your heart for a while. Sometimes when you're doing simple things around the house, maybe you'll think of me and smile. You know I'm tied to you like the buttons on your blouse. Keep me in your heart for a while. Hold me in your thoughts. Take me to your dreams. Touch me as I fall into view. When the winter comes, keep the fires lit, and I will be right next to you. family, friends, Dolphin fans, always remember, he left us still undefeated.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for being with us today as we celebrated the life and the legacy of Don Shula. To all of our speakers and the many who couldn't be with us today, thank you. Thank you also so much to the Shula family, Dave, Mike, Donna, Ann, Sharon, and Mary Ann. Of course, thank you for letting me be a part of tonight. Know that we as players and fans will always be here for you. And as we wrap up, we ask that you take one more moment to listen to one of Coach Shula's favorite songs, Unforgettable, because that is what he was and will always be, unforgettable.